I have a major update about how I conquered, and that update is that I finished writing it! So now that I've written 4 books, almost an entire hand, I just wanted to talk about some things that I've learned because I just want to reflect. My very first book, which I've printed out here, The Bone Boys, it was really interesting. I wrote this in 2020. I'm sure I have a YouTube video about it. And basically with the pandemic, I was like, if not now, when? But basically, when I wrote this, I had been thinking about this idea for a book called The Fine Family for a year, maybe more than a year. Now with Fine Family, I was struggling to outline it and figure it out. You know, I'd just been thinking about it for so long. So instead, I literally pulled up a Word doc and I numbered 1 through 13, whatever, and I was like, I have read so many YA books. I can write a YA book. And I literally just went through that numbered list and spit out like a paragraph summary of each of these chapters, and then I forced myself to write that until I finished it, and that's this novel. My second book was The Fine Family Tree. This was a completely opposite process. As I mentioned, I'd been thinking about this for a year. I'd been ruminating, so I did not outline at all. I 100% just made it up as I was writing it. And you know, there's 8 chapters, so you can tell. There's 8 chapters, but it's longer than Bone Boys. And when I reread it last week, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I think the character dynamics and the characters in general I really like. The magical world building definitely leaves a lot to be desired. Something that I thought of immediately after writing Bone Boys was, I probably read like Save the Cat or something, I don't remember, but after writing Bone Boys I was like, man, my main character never really made any decisions. Interesting. So going into Fine Family, I was really determined for my main character, Riley, to face choices and make some. So both of those books I wrote in 2020. Flash forward to, I guess it was 2022, the final day of 2022, which is when I wrote Not for Profit, my third book. And my shortest. Now this book, dude, this was a crazy process as well. I outlined it like Bone Boys. However, like Fine Family, I had been ruminating on it for over a year. And this whole idea came forward from this short story I wrote for a class. The short story has absolutely nothing to do with how the book ended up being. I really strayed from that original premise, perhaps for the worst. And I also wrote this, you know, I had started it and stopped it so many times, but in November 2022, I was like, NaNoWriMo, Not for Profit. So a lot of this was written during NaNoWriMo. And it was just awful. It was a really horrible experience to write based on word count, which I had never done before. And yeah, I just hated it. It felt like when I sat down to write at the keyboard, knowing, okay, I need 1,500 words, whatever, it felt like I was reaching into a black abyss of horrible tar and trying to pull sentences from there. It was just awful, and I really think the writing is bad. Well, I would not delete anything. And I definitely feel that I'm the type of person who sort of edits as I go, and so not deleting anything was definitely super harmful to the overall quality. And yeah, I would sit down and I would say, okay, I'm setting a timer. This is a technique I'd seen. Okay, I'm setting a timer for a minute, and I will be writing during that minute. No matter what I'm typing, I am nonstop writing. And that is what led to some paragraphs with like randomly switching into first person, or it would be literally my thoughts in that moment, like, okay, I'm not sure where this scene is going to go, but I'm going to try another line of dialogue, and I'm typing that. So, yeah, this is definitely, I would say, the least publishable manuscript I've ever created, but I'm super glad I finished it. I needed to get that story out of me, and yeah, I learned a lot. Now, my fourth book, How I Conquered the Fifth Grade. Like the others, I had ruminated for a year, and I had also strictly outlined, this time to 16 chapters. Now, what made it really unique from the other three was I had such a clear vision of what How I Conquered the Fifth Grade would be. It was like, I think this is actually used as a metaphor in Stephen King's On Writing, but I totally felt it. It was like when I closed my eyes, there was a bookshelf that I could reach out and pull down this book, and I could see the front cover design. I could see the summary on the back. I could flip through it and get a sense of what the writing would be. I could see the freaking marketing plan for this book. I could see the TikToks. I could see it all. And having that really strong vision of what How I Conquered was meant to be was amazing. And it's so different from Not-for-Profit, where that is, if I had to describe my biggest problem with that manuscript, it was a lack of vision. I never even knew how old the characters should be in Not-for-Profit and stuff like that. For How I Conquered, it was so clear. All that to say, I did have questions. On this channel, I made I think maybe 2 videos about during the process of writing it. Yeah, I mean, there were questions I struggled with when it came time to writing it. And, but finishing this draft, or while I was writing this draft, a lot of things clicked into place. Now, probably, I guess more Not-for-Profit than the other two. Not-for-Profit, I rewrote that first chapter 50 times. How I Conquered, probably the same. I wrote so many different versions of that first scene. And ironically, with this draft, I have another version of that first chapter. Halfway through the book, I realized the heart of the story. What I was trying to say, and I realized the backstory for the characters. Now, all of that new information about where my characters have been and what I'm really trying to say now makes, again, this first chapter completely wrong. And I'm going to have to rewrite it again in my second draft. But hey, I'm glad that now I have an even better sense of focused vision about what it's going to be, and I'm really hyped for draft 2. Now I'm about to start grad school, and I want to have a completed second draft before then, so then I can hopefully query it, which would be so incredible. I'm already compiling a list of agents I want to apply to, so I'm super hyped. And I think, another reason why I want to query How I Conquered is, again, what I was saying, the vision. Like, I can just see it published, I understand it, and I think it's super marketable and awesome. I do want to say this one last thing. As someone who has consumed more than any other genre young adult romance, I find it so insane that I have yet to write a young adult romance. Now, are there romantic elements in these? Kinda, but not really. It's not the main thing. And that's just crazy to me. Like, I really feel that I love that genre. It would be so natural for me to write it. And yet, I don't know why I don't have ideas for that. And I'm really fascinated by why we write what we write. I think partially because, I write so much and I don't understand where inspiration comes from or how creativity works. Like, I don't know. It's crazy, but it's so cool to me. It's like truly magic. I just love it. And yeah, I am curious. Maybe my fifth one will finally be that YA romance. Maybe. Maybe I just need to change the names of my fanfiction characters and write their story. I don't know, but I will let you know when I start it.